Star Wars Skeleton Crew may be doomed by the Acolyte failure. Welcome back to Views with Hughes, Agenda Free News. This is Jerome Hughes. Now, let's go ahead and get right into this commentary. Now, today we got to talk about, something that's real about the future of Star Wars, specifically about the upcoming Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Now, if you've been paying attention to the whole direction that Lucasfilm has been taking in recent years, you've probably concerned as I am about Star Wars Skeleton Crew or jaded at this point. But most recent disaster, the Acolyte, has just shown us how far Lucasfilm is willing to go to push their woke agenda, and it raises serious doubts about the fate of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. So let's dive in and break this down, because we've got a lot to cover here, especially when it comes to the potential pitfalls of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Now, I'll be honest, I am jaded and stuff, a little bit disappointed, but not surprised at all. But first off, let's talk about the Acolyte and why it's a failure. Now, it's concerning for Star Wars Skeleton Crew, where the Acolyte was marketed as one of the next big things in Star Wars universe, a fresh look at the dark side set in an unexplored era of the High Republic. But on paper, that sounds good, but just the Star Wars Skeleton Crew does. But when it came down to the execution, what do we get? A show that felt more like a lecture on current social issues than exciting dive into the Star Wars lore. Now, this kind of approach could spell disaster if repeated in Star Wars Skeleton Crew, which I highly doubt. You see, the Acolyte failed for several reasons, but biggest was to prioritization of woke messaging over storytelling, something we fear might happen in Star Wars Skeleton Crew. But instead of giving us complex characters and a gripping plot, the show was riddled with a lot of identity politics, and they were more concerned with casting based on diversity quotas rather than talent, and the writing reflected that too. Now, the characters felt like cardboard cutouts that were designed to tick off every box on the progressive checklist, rather than real people with motivations and struggles that we could connect with. Exactly what we don't want to see in Star Wars Skeleton Crew. All right. And let's not forget how the Acolyte treated its legacy characters and the Star Wars mythos, a misstep that Star Wars Skeleton Crew should actually avoid. Now, by trying to rewrite what we know about the Force and the Jedi to fit modern ideological narratives, that show the Acolyte did a disservice to the rich history that made Star Wars what it is. And fans didn't sign up for a social justice lecture. They signed up for a journey into a galaxy far, far away, full of adventure and mystery. And the Acolyte missed the mark entirely. And the viewership numbers and fan reactions showed it. Now, we can only hope that, Star Wars Skeleton Crew doesn't follow the same misguided path. All right. And I'm hoping good things for Star Wars Skeleton Crew. But why does this matter for Star Wars Skeleton Crew? Well, the Acolyte's failure isn't just a one-off misstep. It's indicating a larger problem at Lucasfilm. It has direct implications for Star Wars Skeleton Crew itself. Now, when the show tanks because it's more focused on pushing an agenda than on delivering high-quality entertainment, it sends a ripple effect through the entire Star Wars franchise, including with Star Wars Skeleton Crew. Now, fans are losing faith in Lucasfilm's ability to deliver. Some have already cut out entirely, and that loss of faith extends to the Star Wars Skeleton Crew so far. Now, we've seen it before with the sequel trilogy, with The Last Jedi, and even with The Rise of Skywalker, and now with the Acolyte, it's happening again. You see, the more Lucasfilm doubles down on its woke agenda, the more they alienate the core audience, the fans who supported the Star Wars for decades and who are now questioning whether they should continue to bother with Star Wars Skeleton Crew, or have they've already just, left entirely. Now, this is where Star Wars Skeleton Crew comes in, standing at a critical junction, and, Jon Favreau needs to deliver. Now, if the showrunners haven't learned from the mistakes of the Acolyte, we're in for another letdown. And this is from Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. Now, Star Wars Skeleton Crew could easily fail some traps where prioritizing diversity and representation over story, filling the show with virtue signaling, and forgetting what made Star Wars beloved in the first place. Now, the success of or failure of Star Wars Skeleton Crew will likely hinge on whether Lucasfilm has truly learned its lesson. But to understand why we're so concerned about Star Wars Skeleton Crew, we need to look at the history of Lucasfilm under Disney's leadership with Kathleen Kennedy. Now, when Disney first bought Lucasfilm, there were a lot of optimism, as you know. Fans were excited about the potential for new Star Wars stories, just as they are cautiously optimistic about Star Wars Skeleton Crew. But then came the sequel trilogy, and the optimism began to fade. where it just got downright nasty and ugly. Now, starting with The Force Awakens, we saw that the beginning of a trend of Star Wars skeleton crew must avoid. The focus shifted from telling a good, exciting story to checking off political boxes. Rey, the protagonist, was portrayed as perfect, flawless character, example of Mary Sue archetype. And this wasn't about giving us a well-rounded, relatable character. It was about promoting a particular narrative. Now, we hope that Star Wars skeleton crew will not fail into this same pattern of sacrificing character depth for political woke messaging. And then there was also The Last Jedi. That came along and took things to a whole new level, further deepening concerns from what now loom over Star Wars skeleton crew, where this film actively dismantled the legacy of Star Wars, turning beloved characters like Luke Skywalker into bitter delusion failures. Why? Well, because it fit the narrative they wanted to push. It wasn't about honoring the past or even crafting a story that made sense within the Star Wars universe. It was about subverting expectations and pushing a progressive agenda, something that Star Wars skeleton crew must be aware of, and if it hopes to succeed. And by the time we got The Rise of Skywalker, the damage was already done. You see, casting a long shadow over projects like Star Wars skeleton crew itself, and the trilogy ended in a disjointed mess, a far cry from, the epic conclusion the fans were hoping for. And this wasn't just about bad writing or poor direction. It was about a fundamental misunderstanding of what Star Wars is supposed to be. A misunderstanding that, if not corrected, could plague Star Wars skeleton crew as well. Now, looking ahead to, Star Wars skeleton crew, fans are either understand the worry or just don't care. Now, Lucasfilm's track record speaks for itself, and those concerns are magnified if it comes to Star Wars skeleton crew. Now, from the sequel trilogy to the Acolyte, we've seen the same mistakes repeated over and over again. The focus isn't on the fans, it's on pushing the woke agenda, and fans are tired of it, especially when it comes to Star Wars skeleton crew. And Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau needs to go ahead with these fans back. But we've seen discussions online, the skepticism, the frustration surrounding Star Wars skeleton crew. Fans are voicing their concerns loudly and for good reason too. Now, they've been burned too many times before by projects that prioritize woke ideology over good storytelling. Now, they've seen what happens when Lucasfilm prioritizes woke messaging over the core elements that made Star Wars a cultural phenomenon, and they fear that Star Wars skeleton crew might be next in line to be, ruined. And Star Wars skeleton crew is being marketed as new, exciting adventure in the Star Wars universe, but can we actually trust that given the history of Lucasfilm? Given what we've seen, can we really believe that Lucasfilm has learned their lesson from their mistakes, or is Star Wars skeleton crew just another project destined to disappoint, filled with the same tired tropes and ideological preaching? Now, these are the different questions that, fans are asking as they, try to contemplate whether they should watch Star Wars skeleton crew, or if they think that Star Wars skeleton crew will live up to the franchise's legacy. Now, this isn't just about Star Wars skeleton crew, though. I mean, certainly is a focal point, but what's happening with Lucasfilm is part of a broader trend in Hollywood, and Star Wars skeleton crew could become another example of this particular troubling pattern. Now, we're seeing more people and more franchises being co-opted by progressive agendas, from Marvel to Star Wars to even James Bond, as y'all saw before. It seems like no series is safe from the creeping influence of woke politics, and Star Wars skeleton crew could be the latest casualty. I'm hoping not. Okay, but this particular shift is not just bad for the fans, it's bad for the industry as a whole. And Star Wars skeleton crew stands at the crossroads of this cultural battle. When studios try to prioritize political messaging over quality storytelling, they lose what made these franchises successful in the first place: their universal appeal. Okay, and Star Wars skeleton crew must be careful not to fall into the trap of turning away its core audience in favor of chasing trends. And these stories were never about pushing particular ideology. They were about adventure, heroism, and the battle between good and evil, themes that resonate with everyone regardless of their political beliefs. Now, Star Wars skeleton crew needs to remember this if it hopes to succeed. But if woke Hollywood and Lucasfilm in particular don't course correct soon, they're going to continue to losing their audience, and Star Wars Skeleton Crew could suffer the same fate. Now, Star Wars fans are tuning out, and they're finding other forms of entertainment that respect their intelligence, their love for these franchises, or they're sticking with the original trilogy, perhaps even a prequel trilogy. But Star Wars Skeleton Crew has the potential to bring them back, but only if it can rise above the political noise and deliver a story that truly feels like Star Wars. Now, in the end, Star Wars Skeleton Crew is not at the crossroads. It could be the show that could either bring back fans or bring back Star Wars to the roots, or not, but focus on the adventure and excitement that made the franchise great. Or it could be another casualty of Lucasfilm's obsession with woke politics. Now, the choice is up to them, but as fans, we need to make our voices heard and demand that Star Wars Skeleton Crew stay true to the essence of what Star Wars is. Now, we're not going to sit quietly and watch as they, ruin what we love, including Star Wars Skeleton Crew, if that's possible. But we're going to hold them accountable. And if Star Wars Skeleton Crew turns out to be another disappointment, guess what? We're all going to be there to call it out, because Star Wars deserves better. The fans deserve better. And the Star Wars Skeleton Crew could be the turning point, or better or for worse. Now, I'll be honest with you all. This is the whole thing got me wondering, like, ever since we've seen with Marvel and Kevin Feige, the rumors that's coming from that camp and stuff, the cancellations. We also heard about the different cancellations with, Star Wars and stuff, and that's going to be for another video in the near future. But the fact of the matter is that if there's any cancellation for Star Wars, like the upcoming projects, which projects are those? Are they shows or are they movies? Could it be the Rey movie? Hopefully, because of the fact that, the damage is already done. Okay. The only way that Star Wars could be saved is if Kathleen Kennedy is gone. Now, we know that she's not going to be fired. The only way that she'll go is like on a high note, and she'll retire. Okay. But the fact of the matter is, in order for her to leave out on a high note, she has to go ahead and abandon woke politics and stuff. And this is why Kathleen Kennedy is not a part of the Star Wars Skeleton Crew project itself. Because the fact of the matter is, it's all controlled by Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. And hopefully, Dave Filoni won't mess this up like he did with season 3 of The Mandalorian. As you all know, that train wreck. Not having any particular unnecessary or unneeded or unwanted celebrity appearances like Lizzo from season 3 of Mandalorian. But the Skeleton Crew, as everybody says, it's giving off an 80s movie vibe and stuff, but actually at the same time, Star Wars Skeleton Crew doesn't even feel like Star Wars. Okay, but we're gonna see and everything. So let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. What are your hopes for and fears for Star Wars Skeleton Crew? Do you think Lucasfilm will finally listen to the fans? Now, let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Also, be sure to include any additional thoughts you might have this particular topic. If you enjoy what I share in this video, go ahead, smash the like button, and share far wide across social media. And if you haven't done so already, and you enjoyed all the content that I put out there, go ahead, subscribe to the channel. Click the bell notification so that way you know if I future uploads and updates. Till then, peace.